This is Between Hook Sets. I'm Jason Walter from In Through the Outdoors with my partner in slime, Kurt Underhill from the Fishing Crew.
You missed that one, buddy.
Yeah, well, we tried to do something new. I didn't think about the fact that I would miss the hook set. That's maybe not going to work so well. We might have to go with something different there. I don't know, but whatever. We're just here having fun. Good to see you.
You too, buddy. Looking all festive over there with your Christmas sweater on.
Yep, it's my favorite ugly sweater. I think I've wore this every Christmas to our radio station Christmas party now for a decade or better. I refuse to buy multiple because you only wear it once a year anyway. So next year at this time, I'll wear it again. And that's just kind of the way it goes. We're getting ready. Christmas is coming up on Monday, and it's going to hit us really fast here. Don't know that it's going to be a white Christmas. Maybe a little different up on Lake of the Woods. We'll have to find out from our guest if there's snow up there. We certainly know there's ice, and the fish are on fire up there. So we're very excited. And I think this is super relevant and timely to have Joe on from Lake of the Woods Tourism Bureau. I think this is a perfect time to have Joe on. No better time than tonight.
No ice around here. That's good ice. So what better to talk about than what we're in the middle of the season of ice fishing, and a place that I haven't been to in a lot of years, and I need to get back up there is, Lake of the Woods. Let's bring Joe in. Joe, how are we doing up there, buddy?
Gentlemen. I got to tell you, things are good. The fact that we started ice fishing in kind of a warm weather winter year, but the fact that we started ice fishing and it started out the way it started, it's freaking on fire. I'll just tell you right now. And you know what?
It's awesome.
Hey, don't take my word for it. Just jump on social media and you'll see. It is the walleye and sauger fish at Lake of the Woods right now. I'm going to tell you, it's on fire. When your buddy says to you, "Hey man, I know this spot. Hey, when it lights up, I'll give you a buzz." I'm giving you that buzz.
That's awesome. Well, Nicole Stone's been up there. The Tramps, so Sarah and Travis have been up there. Rappala's up there right now. Tony Roach is up there right now. I think most of the industry, if they're not on red, they're at Lake of the Woods.
100%. And you think about it. I mean, a couple of walleye hotspots, and we're far north. One of the reasons Upper Red gets rolling ahead of us is because of that shallow water. So they freeze a little quicker, and we always kind of kid around now. It's like, well, it's almost tradition that an ice floe is going to break loose and they got to rescue somebody from a red, because I think it's happened the last 3 years, hasn't it? And luckily, I don't know of anybody that's gotten injured in that deal. I think that, and kudos to the authorities and everybody else, but Upper Red's a great fishery and it gets going early. That's like the first one for walleyes, and we follow shortly behind, and here we are. So I gotta tell you guys, it's been a warm year, warmer than normal. And we're out ice. Most of our resorts and outfitters are out ice fishing, not all. And, people say, well, how is the ice on Lake of the Woods? Honestly, it's 0 to 12 inches. We got out some. Lake of the Woods is so big, you can't make a blanket statement. So, it's 42 miles north-south and it's about 30 miles east-west. That's a lot of water. And, in some areas where we're fishing, or our resorts and outfitters are fishing, I should say, it's really good. I mean, there's good ice, and they have a marked trail that they check ice conditions. They have been for a long time. They're fishing in areas. They're not letting you go too far where the ice isn't good. But then there's also areas where the ice isn't so good. Maybe it broke open later in the year, and you got to work through a resort or outfitter. You stay in the marked trails. Don't veer off of them. Don't go further than they say. Trying to get that new water, you don't need to. The fishing's good enough. If you do that, you're going to be just fine, But that it's important to know that.
Yeah, it's so true. I can't imagine that you would suggest anybody fly onto Lake of the Woods like somebody tried to do on Red. That didn't work so well.
Well, I'll tell you this. If we do get a lot of planes that land on Lake of the Woods, especially up at the northwest angle. And you know what? The kicker is, normally they land in an area that's a marked runway that the resort has checked and maintains. That is the difference, rather than going off on your own. And, those poor people, let alone had to be scarier than heck. Thankfully, they didn't, get too hurt or anything. And it's also got to be very embarrassing down the back end because let's face it, that photo has gone wild, hasn't it?
It's crazy. Well, even the story behind it, I didn't understand it till I saw a story. It was either early this morning or later, midday. The fact that they hit the ice, come in a little bit too hot, and because there was no snow on the ice, they couldn't stop, and they just kept on going until they hit.
Oh, so maybe they saw an area that they could land, and it probably was okay for them, but they just slid so much that they went to the bad ice, huh?
Yeah, that's kind of the way it sounds. So, and that those things happen. It's unfortunate. A lot of people got a laugh out of it, basically because nobody got hurt. Thank goodness. That was a big thing. I know Charlie Barons had posted his play at Clay. How you doing? He posted his play on trouble on the ice, breaking off ice sheet on Lake Michigan, and that came like hours before we got the news that it happened on Red again yesterday. I think 35 people had to be rescued, and that just seems to be an early ice thing for Red, and that's the way it goes. So luckily we get into these situations and people are okay. I guess they pulled a snowmobile out of Red as well, so really got to be careful, whether you're on Lake of the Woods or Devil's Lake or Mille Lacs or even the lakes around here, Lake Poncet, Thompson, Sinai, and those. So it's just thin ice.
It is. Yep. It's just, safety first. That's one of the things about Lake of the Woods I do enjoy. I do appreciate is that there's enough resorts and outfitters that they are marking trails. They're maintaining trails. If a crack pops up, either they divert you or they put a bridge over the crack. They're watching ice upheavals, blah, blah, blah. But, that's important. And, when you go down on waters that don't have that full service, it does make it more challenging because now you're on your own. And that's where you really need to work with bait shops, locals, go out with a team of people. It's nice to have a couple different sleds or four-wheelers or side-by-sides in case, just the basics, right? But again, safety number one, walleyes and saugers number two.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? So let's talk a little bit about your awards. You are a multi-award winning director with the Lake of the Woods Tourism Bureau. And of course, you're on Aglow. We're both there, the Association of Great Lakes Outdoor Writers, and it's a fantastic group, a wonderful group. I had a bunch of pictures of you, but then I had so many other pictures, and I thought, well, a lot of people, and especially me, because you remind me of it, that, you're more than a director of tourism. You are actually a very accomplished angler as well. So
I think we can save the audience the pain of showing my picture, but you know what it is, you guys. I'm the executive director of tourism for Lake of the Woods, and I've been in that role for 12 years. But one of the things that led me to that is, of course, my background in marketing doesn't hurt, right? Because you're promoting a destination. But really the fishing part of it, I think Lake of the Woods Tourism was looking for somebody who is a whiz at marketing and promotions and such, but also knows fishing because that is such a fishing-centric destination. And, my background, I'm fishing first and everything else second. I'm a licensed charter captain. I fish walleye tournaments. I go out and ice fish. Grew up in central Minnesota, so when I'm not after walleyes up at Lake of the Woods, walleyes and saugers, I'm going after panties, on local small lakes. And, I hunt and, I'm just like you guys. I'm like so many outdoors people throughout the Midwest. I hunt and I fish. And, by the way, I also, when I have to, I put my professional hat on and, then you light it up in a different way, right? And as a tourism director, we're promoting a destination. And, Lake of the Woods is the walleye capital of the world, with all due respects to some of the other great bodies of waters that have walleyes. I got my captain's license actually down on Lake Erie, and I've run a charter boat on Lake Erie, and all my buddies on Lake Erie give me a hard time whenever I mention the walleye capital of the world. They're like, no, I think you're mistaken there. And of course, some of my friends on Mille Lacs might say it, and Upper Red, and there's a lot of good walleye fisheries.
My boys out here on Lake Oahe might challenge you on that too.
Oahe might challenge us too. That's right. That's exactly right. When I first started with Lake of the Woods Tourism, there was somebody, an author from Boat US, that did a story on all the different destinations that claimed to be the walleye capital. And it was kind of a fun story. But you know what? Here's the gig: is that obviously all these bodies of water that claim that they're all good walleye fisheries, and Lake of the Woods is one too. But promoting a destination, here's what's interesting, and I don't know if people realize this. People often say, "Hey, Joe, you work for the chamber." No, actually, I don't. A chamber of commerce promotes local businesses. A tourism bureau or a destination marketing organization, and just about every area has a destination marketing organization that promotes their destination. My job is to educate, promote, whatever the case might be, folks that live outside of our area to come to our area and stay overnight. And what people don't realize is that, when somebody comes and stays overnight at a resort up at Lake of the Woods, there's for every $1 spent on lodging, there's a 5 to 7 time trickle down effect to the local economy. Gas, food, booze, hardware stores, fishing guides, you name it. And, so the bottom line is once people come up and start, enjoying Lake of the Woods, the rest just flows. And that's why DMOs, destination marketing organizations, are important. So that's really what I do. And it's a very busy job, it's nonstop. At Lake of the Woods, we get fishing going on every month of the year, literally. We got extended seasons, in the winter. The rest of Minnesota, for the most part, they have to have fish houses off by the end of February. Up at Lake of the Woods, we have an extended season because we're border water with Canada. So we can have fish houses out overnight through March 31st. We have an extended walleye season. The rest of the state, for the most part, ends at end of February. We're border water, so we get to go through April 14th. We got that spring run on the Rainy River. We have extended seasons. We go longer. We got walleye, sturgeon, eel pout, kind of a unique fish that not every body of water has. Those lake sturgeon, man, we're catching a ton of sturgeon through the ice already. In some cases, we're fishing for them on the Rainy River, and in some cases, they're hitting the lines of the walleye anglers. So, one of the things we all say about Lake of the Woods, you never know what you're going to catch at Lake of the Woods. When you see something come in on your electronics and it hits you and you set that hook, especially if it's big, you don't know if it's going to be 32-inch walleye. You don't know if it's going to be a huge pout. We had the last 2 state record eel pout. The current state record for eel pout or burbot or lawyer or poor man's lobster or freshwater cod, a lot of names for them, is 19.5 pounds. That's the current state record for Minnesota out of Lake of the Woods. You don't know. You can set the hook. It's going to be a lake sturgeon or a huge pike. We even get a couple of lake trout down on the basin. Lake trout, with the water temperature being consistent in the winter, some of those fish will swim from the Canadian side where they're more notorious, and they'll swim down to the U.S. side. So it's just kind of a fun fishery that way.
Yeah, I get you. And there's this kind of fun too on Lake of the Woods. I think this is one of those spots. I just have to make it up there sometime to hang out there.
Well, I tell you, so what you just showed was the Igloo Bar. So to your listeners and such, let me explain it this way. Imagine you got a nice bar. It's got 2 big screen TVs. It's got an instant cash machine. It's got almost a full bar, partial hot menu. They got some hot food items. And, by the way, it's 3 miles out on Lake of the Woods, and you can actually ice fish in the bar.
That's awesome.
What else could you ask for?
Yeah,
now,
right.
Here's interesting.
Oh, no kidding.
One of the main bartenders, her name is Jenny. She comes in at about noon. And first thing she does, she takes a big sucker minnow and puts that sucker minnow down. Every year, she catches multiple pike over 40 inches, which is about a 20-pound pike. Every year she does. Now, I asked the owner, Nick Panovich, I said, "Hey, Nick, gets pretty festive in there when somebody catches a walleye." He says, "Well, you should see what happens when somebody loses one." Well, the other thing that's funny is
you definitely don't want to lose the fish.
No. I think you got razzed pretty good to that crowd in there. And then the other thing was kind of funny is I said to Nick, I said, well, they got a couple of porta potties outside, and they got them kind of spray foamed and painted so that it looks like little igloos out there. And it's kind of funny too because they got like a stoplight there, a red, green, or yellow, whatever, whether the bathroom's open or not. But I said, Nick, kind of unique that you heat the porta potties, because I'll tell you what happened. He says, some of my friends who are female, they're giving me such a hard time about those cold seats, so I started heating the women's to be nice. Well, then all the guys started using the gals' bathroom. Now I got to heat them both.
So it's pretty good. Okay, so now speaking of using the bathroom, things are changing in Minnesota a little bit. Basically, thanks to you, I think it's it's a big deal that that they're working on this whole thing, and this has become reality for Minnesota, and I think it is a big, huge deal. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I sure will. And by the way, that was the last bar we were talking about was the Igloo Bar out of Zipple Bay Resort. And I should mention too, there is another bar that popped up here in the last couple of years called Ice Bar, called the Angry Walleye.
Ooh.
What a name for a bar, an Angry Walleye. And that's out of a Cyrus Resort. But if you guys get a chance to come up, we're going to go to those two bars after we get some hook sets, certainly.
That's a good idea.
There we
I think
go.
that's a great idea. By the way, my my hat came out of the garbage that was found on the ice. It's a funny hat though. It's got two holes on the top there. I'm not quite sure what the deal is, but I thought
I was going to say that was a Santa hat. I thought that was a Santa hat. I didn't know it was a pair of briefs.
So
that's what it is, a pair of briefs, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. But it makes a great Santa hat, doesn't it?
I hope you washed them.
So,
I'm just saying.
All I hope is you got pants on for the podcast. That's all I hope.
Talk about keep it clean.
Don't stand up. Don't make them stand up, Kurt. Don't just stay seated.
So speaking of that, with Eelpout Fest was over in Minnesota, and that was one of the main reasons it got canceled because all the garbage.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's so great. I mean, I take young kids fishing. I've got a young daughter, and that's always been the teach is, I don't care if we didn't bring it or taking it out. If we find something, we're taking it out with us. We had a youth coyote tournament earlier this year. We pulled into a field, we parked at the gate, come back, and there's a whole bunch of beer, and I made the boys, we all went out and picked up all the garbage out of the ditch. That's so important.
It's so good you do it. I mean, what a great role model.
We got to pick this stuff up, and these guys that leave it out there, people in the world are after outdoorsmen all the time, and to do something like that to give extra ammo to them people to say, look at what they're doing, let's not do that. I mean, it's simple, guys. I mean, you brought it, you've got room to take it home, and make sure you clean up after yourself. I fished with Brian Brosdahl, and if you've ever ice fished with Brian Brosdahl, it is the most intense thing you've ever seen, because if you spill waxworm dust on the ice, he's losing his mind over you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he is so down to keep it clean, keep it better than when we got here. And it's been something, that I've lived by for all my life. And it's just so, my daughter knows, like, do not spill waxworm dust on the ice. I mean, sawdust, but that was a Brian Brosdahl. I think he beat me the 2x4 when I dumped 3 flakes on the ground. So I keep it that way. So guys, clean up. I mean, it's simple.
I tell you, what Jason was talking about was, the Keep It Clean campaign that we started. And I'll tell you, I'll give you a little history in that Keep It Clean. So, we started that about 11 years ago up at Lake of the Woods. And I'll tell you how it started. There's a group called Friends of Zipple Bay State Park, and they were doing their annual beach cleanup. They have a beautiful, beautiful beach. If you ever get up at Lake of the Woods, especially in the summer, just drive through Zipple Bay State Park. It's gorgeous. It doesn't get a lot of traffic. And they got a beautiful beach that's located right on Lake of the Woods. And they did their annual beach cleanup in the spring. It just so happened that the wind was blowing in the right direction, and they got 5 trailer loads full of garbage. And we thought, holy smokes, this is one small area of Lake of the Woods. What about the stuff that sunk? And what if the wind wasn't blowing the right way? So we're like, man, we got to do something about this. So we started we got together a group of stakeholders. It's Lake of the Woods Soil and Water Conservation District, DNR Fisheries, DNR Enforcement, Lake of the Woods County, Roseville County, Lake of the Woods Tourism, Friends of Zipple Bay State Park. I'm trying to think if there's others, but a group of stakeholders that came together, and really our purpose was to educate, promote, and enforce keeping garbage and trash off of Lake of the Woods. Fast forward 11 years later, we've had, certainly whenever you have human beings, you're going to have some challenges like that. And as more and more people get out ice fishing, as good as that is for our sport, it also poses problems because we are human beings and there are problems that go along with it. So a number of areas started looking at solutions for their own bodies of water and ran across us at Keep It Clean. And they're like, well, we should reach out to these folks. And they started reaching out, and it was, Upper Lower Red Lake and Mille Lacs Lake and Lake Vermilion. And we said, you know what? We got a 10-year head start on you. This is last year. We got a 10-year head start on you. we've learned a lot, and we also have relationships with a lot of like-minded organizations, DNR, Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, other soil and water conservation districts, some different MinFish is a group in Minnesota for sport fishing. So anyway, instead of doing all that, why don't you just come and join us? You know what we said is it won't cost you a penny to join us. We simply say that you have to fill this agreement out and sign it so that we don't lose control of our logo and of our messaging. You know, when you're talking about human waste, there could be some messaging that could be a little bit, uncouth and that sort of thing. So we've joined. We have about 50 different areas that have joined us. We represent over 1,200 lakes, and it's just a grassroots organization. And what we do is we offer up the Keep It Clean logo to the groups that join us. We offer up the Keep It Clean logo. We have pre-made ads, so you don't have to go create ads. We get ads that are Keep It Clean ads. We offer a co-op for geofencing. We started at Lake of the Woods. If somebody goes out on the ice on Lake of the Woods, if they get a half a mile out on that ice and they cross this invisible barrier with their smartphone and location services turned on their smartphone, they have a very good chance of getting an ad while they're out fishing that says, hey, please remember, keep Lake of the Woods clean. Well, we said, why don't we let other destinations learn about this too, who might not be so up on digital marketing? And we started a co-op. So we got a grant from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. And we said, if you are in an area and you want to do digital marketing in your area, up to $500, we'll match it with another $500. We thought that'd be a good way to really spread our, what we're trying to accomplish with keeping it clean. And so anyway, we did all that. And then this last summer, we got legislation passed. We had a lot of supporters for this legislation. DNR was behind it. Minnesota Pollution Control was behind it. Politicians were behind it. Groups like, Minnesota Lakes and Rivers. I mean, I can go on and on. I'm probably missing. MinFish is a group that promotes quality sport fishing in Minnesota, led by Ron Shera. But all these groups were behind this effort. They're like, why wouldn't we be? So a lot of people said, you don't have a law like that already. And really there wasn't. So our new law that got passed this past summer, it's now illegal to place any kind of garbage, trash, or waste on or below the ice in Minnesota waterways. Now, what that does is two things. Kurt, to your point earlier, come on, guys, don't believe in stuff out. I think that there's two kinds of people, my hunch. Small group of people that are just pigs. They don't care. Small group. But I think there's a much larger group of people that are leaving trash behind that might not even know in many cases. And hear me out. Imagine if we're staying overnight on the ice for a few nights in a sleeper fish house. I think a lot of people say, hey, let's just set our trash bags and such outside the door. We're certainly going to pick it all up before we go. Well, in the course of a few days, you got 40-mile-an-hour winds. You got 6 inches, a foot of snow. You got crows and stuff tearing into the bags looking for food. The bags freeze into the ice. So when you pull the bag up, it breaks apart and stuff blows away. So even good-meaning people are leaving some trash behind. Even if you leave a little bit of trash behind, multiply that by, as an example, in Lake of the Woods, 3 million angling hours per winter.
Yeah.
Now, you might not have that much on your own little lake, but even your own little lake, you multiply that by the masses over the course of a few months of ice fishing, it's too much. It's too much. So now the fact that we have a law, everybody is talking about the law. They're cognizant that, no, I need to keep my trash from now on. I can't put it outside on the ice. I got to keep it in my fish house, in my vehicle, or in a container that's attached to something. So now, just by happenstance, I think tons and tons of garbage will not make it to our waterways. We're hoping we got one new member in Wisconsin that joined our Keep It Clean. That's the first one in Wisconsin. And, we're hoping that other states join copy what we're doing. Join our group if you want to. It's free. And then if you want to copy, what we're doing, you can copy it for free. It's already done. I'm hoping some of this legislature will go off into other ice belt states and just carry on because, in some ways our destinations are competitors, but, in other ways, we're partners in success. We can all do well, but let's just all do well together.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? I hope South Dakota picks it up, North Dakota. One angler with a bag of seeds makes it look like 50 were out there.
I was going to say that. Sunflower seeds are I lose my mind if I see people.
I do too. Sun seeds and pistachio shells just drives me insane. Even at baseball games, like, okay, seriously, let's just put them in a cup, put them in a cup and keep 'em. So hopefully, because that is a big deal, that trash on the ice is horribly ugly, and I deleted the picture. I didn't want to show it again because it's just that doggone ugly. But maybe people need to see it. I think.
How about this one though? We talk about trash. How about human waste?
Yeah, right.
How about people? Let's face it. As human beings, if we're going to be on the ice for a while, we have to use the restroom. That's just the way we are. And the kicker is having a game plan before you go out. So for instance, resorts up at Lake of the Woods, resorts and outfitters, they know that they have to provide a means. So some of them have porta potties on the ice. Some of them have situations where you can have privacy of a restroom, but you use a plastic bag. Now, where do you put those plastic bags? You got to have proper means to dispose of them. So we really encourage our resorts and outfitters to, if they're having somebody pay for the service of ice fishing, in return, make sure that you have a responsible way for your guests to use the restroom and dispose of that properly. You can't just put human waste necessarily into the same bin as trash. It's different. And so those are the things we talk about. If you're going out on your own, have a game plan. Have a game plan so that, if I do have to use the restroom, I know how I'm going to use the restroom and where it's going to be disposed of and how I bring it back with me. And you get it. But I mean, those are good things to talk about.
Yeah, kitty litter's my friend when I'm on the ice. And then you try to dispose of it properly when you come back home or wherever there is a potential. Honestly, I don't know how Game and Fish and DNR and Game and Parks feel about, say, a bag of human feces with kitty litter, and then you go over to one of the outhouses on the park or wherever and dump it down in the hole. I would guess it's all biodegradable. Kitty litter is nothing more really than clay. So I would assume that would be the best way to get rid of it. And then, of course, chuck the bag in the garbage, and tie it up. And hopefully that's the right thing.
Well, the interesting thing is too, and that's a very, very good question, because here's the thing. In talking to some of the DNR biologists and such, we talked about how, it's one thing to have human waste on the ice. It's bad enough. But, if we had our choice to have human waste or human waste in a plastic bag, I'll tell you what, it would just be human waste, because that plastic bag, that is not biodegradable,
No.
And I'll tell you, it's bad. Here's the other kicker. A lot of our wheelhouses now have heated holding tanks so you can use the bathroom. And, those have chemicals in them. That we've seen instances of people that have dumped the chemicals and the human waste mixed together on the ice, or for whatever reason, some people think that, okay, I'm not going to dump it on ice. So as soon as I get off the ice and I'm on the road that comes off the ice, I can dump it there in the ditch or dump it on the road, and that's going to be better. But I tell you, those chemicals are so bad for the environment. So one of the things we've done up at Lake of the Woods, and we're trying to get spread across the state of Minnesota, is to make sure that there are ample winter dumping stations for the wheelhouses, in strategic locations. We have 2 of them up at Lake of the Woods, and there's a lot of dumping stations in the summer because of all the campers and such, but most of those are not open in the winter. So again, if anybody's hearing this that works on these things, and whatever state, whatever ice belt, start making a game plan, start working with different agencies and get winter dump stations set up strategically so that people bringing a wheelhouse home after some ice fishing, they have a place they can stop on the way home. And most people are really good about it. Boy, all it takes is a few. And my goodness, that's bad for the environment, really bad. And hey, you guys, I'm no tree hugger. This is not
either.
Right away I say that because some people in the hunting fishing industry, they're like, oh, Joe's probably a freaking tree hugger. No. I fish, I hunt, I tell jokes, and I would not tell in the air like everybody else. And here's a kicker: this is not too heavy of a lift. This is about responsibility. This is about caring about the environment that I so enjoy, and that is right. That's not a tree hugger mentality.
Yeah, no, it's the responsible thing. We've all got to be better stewards of the land and everything that it gives us. And I think it makes sense to pick up after yourself and to leave things neat and tidy, because you wouldn't leave a mess like that in your front yard. Now, for some odd reason, hey, Nate, nice to see you're on. I see these high school kids are peeing in my driveway in town, and I don't understand you know, what the mentality is. I haven't quite figured it out, but it's numerous kids, and I'm going to move on from that. But still, you know, you wouldn't leave that mess in your front yard if you were fishing in your front yard or cabin or whatever. So please pick up after yourself. That would be wonderful.
But keep it clean, you guys. You know, the big thing is too, man. Let's get that to spread to other states and other areas. I mean, hey, we started up north, 11 years ago. That's all fine and good, right? But hey, this isn't something to keep a secret. This is something that we should spread and talk about. And I tell you, our soil and water conservation districts in Minnesota, these, I'm not sure how they're set up in other states, but man, they've really taken the bull by the horns and done a nice job of they kind of oversee some of the lakes anyway, and they sometimes implement aquatic invasive species programs in the summer. And, it's been a nice fit. Boy, the DNR has been behind this. I mean, why wouldn't they? But they have been. They've been very supportive. It's just how many times do you get an initiative that most groups are really behind? There's really not been the opposition to this.
No, that's true. And hopefully other states will pick it up, no doubt. I want to talk a little bit about rut. Maybe you guys are seeing a lot of moose up there. Have you heard of rut yet? The central moose on the loose?
No, I haven't.
So it was tracked from, I think it's Elton, Iowa in September, all the way up through central Minnesota to the Perham area. And now they say he's wandering around Detroit lakes, but it's this moose they call rut, moose on the loose. And everybody, there's like 46,000 people in this Facebook group that are following it. And it's just kind of a neat, fun little story. Do you see quite a few moose moving around up where you are?
We have some, but I'll tell you, a lot of the moose are a little bit to the, more in the northeast, but we do get a few up there. Yeah, in fact, once somebody takes a picture of one and they shoot it on Facebook, it goes wild. We got more deer than we do moose.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I just wondered because there was a moose in the Spirit Lake area that had got onto the ice and drowned. Now they see there's another moose down there, and now we hear maybe there's another moose that's moving around the Detroit Lakes area, and they're thinking maybe that the moose have been pushed down because of the wildfires and all. But Toby's got something here. Pop that back up again. I missed it. Yeah, Toby, you're absolutely right. Let me really quick mention this too, because we popped it up from Jack's Tackle, a 12-year-old tackle maker from Grand Forks. He was talking about the Chase and Walter microbeaded snell. It's an idea that I had that I passed on to him. And so he's been making and selling the microbeaded snells. And we're giving a dime every time to the Children's Miracle Network, and we're going to present a check once all is said and done in January, and I can't remember the date, the Fishing for Miracles tournament on Lake Poncet. So if you get a chance, you can visit my website, chaseandwalter.com. If you go all the way down to the bottom, you'll see the microbeaded snells, and it'll take you right to Jack's Tackle Shop, and you can buy those microbeaded snells there. And he's given a dime every time to the Children's Miracle Network. And luckily, up in Grand Forks, that Children's Miracle Network Hospital is the same for us down here. It is the Sioux Falls Children's Hospital, the Sanford Castle. So that's a big deal and kind of a fun thing that's close to our hearts. So I just wanted to quickly mention that since he popped it up there. But
so Jason, let's not assume people know what that microbeaded snell is. So maybe just share with the listeners what that is.
Yeah, well, I wish I every week I've had one sitting here, and I don't have one tonight. But it is it's just a micro bead in a color combination, whether it's peppermint, which is red and white, or there's Tough Enough, which is pink, purple, and white. And there are a number of combinations there that I have used over the last year. I've caught multiple big bluegill, 10, 11-inch bluegill off of them. I have caught 20-inch plus walleye off of them. I have caught numerous 12, 13-inch perch off of them. I think they work great, and I just shared that idea with Jack for something different to put on his website. So it's just a concept that I came up with that I fiddle around. I always do that. I'm always messing around with different tackle ideas, and I passed it on to Brian Brosdahl one day, and I thought, well, I don't know that it's going to go anywhere, but let's let Jack try it. So they've been selling some up there, and we're excited to give that dime to the Children's Miracle Network for every microbeaded snell sold. So I appreciate the time to talk about that while you're on here.
I'll tell you what, and Kurt, you didn't say anything about it, but I'm kind of curious how much money Jason has made on that ugly sweater.
Oh,
I mean, when you get into those contests, he must just career.
That's why he only wears one. He wraps up all the contests with one sweater.
Yeah. He's the grand champion of them all.
Now that I went,
in his hat.
Toby missed my hat, which is
if he doesn't get enough attention with that sweater, he's got to put that special hat of his on, the Keep It Clean hat.
Yeah,
isn't that the truth? Holy cow!
Getting back to Lake of the Woods, and if somebody is wanting to make a trip up there, there is a bunch of different resorts. But what would they need to bring? What's the fishing like? What techniques? I mean, I got a great story. I was in 6th grade. My dad planned this Lake of the Woods trip for us, and we were all pumped up to go. And he called what he thought Lake of the Woods was back in the old attached cell phone, or we had a bag phone in the truck we drove up there. But he called up and he's like, "How's the walleyes?" And the guy goes, "What's a walleye?" And he ended up hey guys, we got salmon running. He actually called Alaska, not Lake of the Woods.
Oh, no.
And we ended up going up there, had a 5-man, 5-night sleeper shack. We didn't have the best fishing, but I have some of the greatest memories of burning 400 gallons of gas in a snowmobile. It was freezing cold. We got into a good pike fish day, but what a guy's, it's different, right? Like you said, it's a big lake. It's huge. It's intimidating. What's a trip look like for somebody up there?
Yeah, it's a great question. So first and foremost, what I always say is, we have everything from self-service to full service. So, feel free to bring your own equipment, but I'll say the first time up, go with a resort. You kind of get the lay of the land. And once you get the lay of the land, you can see how things work up there and say, gosh, we could do this on our own. Or, we could do it on our own, but do we really want to pull our fish house this far? Or we could do it on our own, but it's such big water. If it starts whipping out, do we want to be out here in collapsibles? Or better off just paying a few bucks and being on a hard-sided check? Those are decisions you can make. But the bottom line is this. It's Minnesota waters. So you're allowed 2 lines per person ice fishing. So normally what you're going to do is you're going to jig one line and dead stick the second line. You're going to jig with a jigging spoon and a minnow head, or a jigging spoon and a piece of minnow. Maybe you use a rip and wrap, but you're going to be jigging one line. And then a second line, you can have a walleye jig on it with a live minnow about 6 inches off the bottom. You might use a plain hook with a split shot above it 6 inches off the bottom. I say 6 inches as a rule. You know what? Sometimes a foot. Sometimes if you're not getting those fish to eat and you can see them on the graph, raise that sucker up to 2.5 feet and make them chase it up. But either way, that 1-2 punch is really how you're going to do it. Know that our water is stained water, meaning the water's colored almost like a kind of a light tea or coffee color. That's because of the tannins in the watershed, primarily the bogs. They put natural tannins from the plant matter that stain the water, and that water is stained. That means that it's clean water, it's just stained. During the day, the walleyes and saugers bite the best. You don't have to be out there at 2:00 in the morning, in a sleeper shack getting woken up by a rattle reel. Now, if you're in a clear water lake, that might be the best way to catch some walleyes, is to have your lines down all night long, right? But on Lake of the Woods, it's stained water, so they actually bite better during the day. People ask, hey, if I stay in a sleeper shack, can I get a few walleyes at night? You can get a few walleyes at night. I suggest keeping your baits suspended about halfway down on the water column as a rule at night, and don't plan on getting a lot of fish, but you can. As far as the full service thing goes, what most, like right now, early ice, what most resorts offer is, you go up there, you stay with them. They got heated day houses right now. The sleeper fish houses will go out, but they're not out yet because of ice conditions don't merit the wait. But right now we have day houses out. You stay at a resort in the morning, you eat a good breakfast. They got light ice rigs they take you out to the fish houses in to keep you safe. The light ice rigs would be like a Suzuki Samurai or a Geo-Track or a light Jeep that they pull an enclosed heated trailer with extra suspension. You basically get in there, and there's a couple of bench seats, one on each side, and you bring your buckets and your electronics in there and whatever food you're bringing for the day and beverages, and usually 2 5-gallon pails as a rule. Maybe you have a thing of rods, and you jump on in that, and they take you out to the house. And okay, the Henry group, You're in house number 22. You get 4 of you, right? You guys get out, you walk 5 steps into 70-degree heated comfort. You take your jacket off, you hang it up, and you start fishing. They check on you a couple times throughout the day. At about 4:30-ish, when it's getting dark out, they come back and they pick you and your bucket of fish up, and they take you back in just in time for a happy hour, and they even clean your fish for you. The thing you need to do is really when you choose a resort or outfitter, the biggest thing you need to do is just get their address and put that in your phone or your GPS and just get there. Once you get there, they'll take care of the rest. Now, we got resorts that are ma and pa style. They don't have any bar and restaurant. We got resorts that have a huge bar and beautiful restaurant with prime rib and buffets and everything else. And we got everything in between. We always talk about, the good food when you go on a vacation. Man, I'll tell you, some of the stuff we have up at Lake of the Woods, Kurt. I mean, first off, the traditional walleye fish fry. Every resort has what they think is the best batter. They've perfected it over the years. They got the best tartar sauce they perfected over the years. And of course, all the trimmings, some have buffalo chips, little, round potatoes, deep fried. Some of them they have the beaners, they have some of them fried onions. It just, every place is a little bit different. Of course, you got your homemade pizzas, your half-pound cheeseburgers with bacon on them. You got your cheese curds, with no lefse, nothing like that. But I mean, no lutefisk. But we do have a lot of good local fare up there. And every bar and restaurant has its own kind of ambiance. So if you want to come up on the cheap, and it's a group of guys, and you don't care where you're staying, you're just going to crash, have a few drinks at night. We got resorts that have very reasonable lodging. If you're coming with as a couple or maybe a couple of couples and you want a little bit nicer accommodations, we have very new accommodations, nice accommodations as well, and everything in between. As far as the season progresses, we get our sleeper fish houses out on the lake. Our sleeper fish houses will sleep 4 to 8 people. You usually bring your own sleeping bag, your own food, your own drinks, some water. Some cases they provide the pots and pans. In other cases you do. Some of the sleeper fish houses have they all have propane stoves normally, or cooktops. Some of them even have propane ovens. So if they do, people will bring a pan of lasagna or fresh, a pan of cinnamon rolls or caramel rolls to cook in the morning. You stay in a sleeper house, you guys. I don't know if you've ever done it or not, but it's like ice camping. It might be. I like it when it's cold and just whipping outside, cold as heck. Gosh dang it. You're 70-degree comfort. You're cozy inside. I love hearing that wind whipping at night. I sleep so good. You wake up in the morning, you get that coffee pot going. I'm normally sleeping in shorts and a sweatshirt or a t-shirt. I'll throw a sweatshirt on in the morning and, maybe a pair of sweats. I'll put a hat on and start jigging. Get that coffee going in the morning, and it's really kind of a neat atmosphere out there. It's like ice camping. I'll tell you the other thing. You come out and you go to of your fish house at night out on Lake of the Woods. And you look at that sky, it is like, if it's clear out, it's like nothing you've ever seen before. You have so many stars that are just twinkling, they're sparkling. You got Milky Ways, you got satellites going across. Once in a while you hit a lucky and you get the northern lights. You're so far north, and on top of it, you have, no light pollution.
Yeah, right.
So everything just pops. I'll tell you, the other thing that's kind of neat is people say, gosh, Lake of the Woods is big. Where do I begin? I break Lake of the Woods up into 3 areas: the Rainy River, the South Shore, and the Northwest Angle. The Rainy River, we got a whole bunch of resorts on the Rainy River. Some of them even ice fish. Right now we got the Royal Dutchman as an example, and I think Sean's Birchview. But, they're actually catching sturgeon through the ice, walleyes and sauger, but it's ice. It's ice on a river. You got to be dang careful what you're doing. Go through an outfitter. Don't screw around. And then, of course, we got the South Shore of Lake of the Woods. That's the big Lake of the Woods. Big Traverse Bay is that area that's 30 miles long by 25 miles wide. Big basin of ice. And that's where we got a whole bunch of resorts that'll go out on that main basin. And then, of course, that third area is that little tip of Minnesota that sticks up into Canada called the Northwest Angle. And that is the northernmost point of the contiguous United States. That's where the 14,552 islands of Lake of the Woods begin. So when you're ice fishing up there, it's a lot different because you're fishing down in that basin. As a rule, you fish some structure, but you're fishing that big flat mud. And you got huge schools of walleyes and saugers roaming around. Up at that the angle, you got a lot of structure you're fishing, because that's where the Canadian Shield begins, and that's where the Rock is, and all the islands. So you're fishing, you're fishing basins that are on the edge of a reef, or you're fishing on the edge of a reef, or maybe on top of a reef. It's just different. It's different atmosphere up there. But when you go to the Northwest Angle, it's called an exclave, meaning you actually have to travel through 40 miles of Canada when you drive up there, and then you re-enter back into the United States up at the Northwest Angle. So if you're going to drive up, people need, passports and that sort of thing. Oh, sure. Now, if you want to avoid customs, we have either, if you're a snowmobiler, we have a 42-mile long groomed staked snowmobile trail that goes from the south end of the lake up to the Northwest Angle. In fact, we have a couple of them, one on the east and west side. Otherwise, we have a service called the Lake of the Woods Passenger Service. That's a company that has bombardiers in the winter and charter boats in the summer. What they'll do is they'll take you from the south end of the lake. They'll keep you on Lake of the Woods, which keeps you in Minnesota, and they'll take you up to your favorite Northwest Angle resort, so you can experience all that, and you don't have to pass through customs in the event that maybe somebody in your group has a DUI, which Canada doesn't allow through. Maybe not everybody has passports, or a passport card, or enhanced driver's license, which you need to get over the border. So a lot of options,
Awesome. That's awesome. And I was going to ask what kind of basin it is. It's just a mud flat. So if guys are heading up there, in the next month, you're just looking for, a big flat, find the 15, find the 20, wherever the fish are. If they're heading up there this weekend, where would you point them to start fishing?
Go to a resort or outfitter.
Yeah, exactly.
Seriously, because right now, you stay on that main trail that a resort or outfitter has staked, and it's 10, 12 inches of ice. You go off not that far, you might find 4 or 5 inches of ice. So go with an outfitter. The other thing is they're not allowing any kind of, other than some of the outfitters are allowing some ATVs side by side and snowmobile travel with collapsibles, and that's great. But what I would say is this: you want to get out there to an area where there's fish. Ideally I like to spread out a little bit, and then just start fishing. And I give it a little while. I give it a half hour, 45 minutes. If I'm not marking fish, well, then I might reset and get up and move. As far as colors go, because of that stained water, gold is a good color. Like one old timer said to me, he says, "Yeah, you can use any color in Lake of the Woods as long as it's gold." But gold is a good color, and your glow colors, your glow white, your glow reds, and then like pink and chartreuse and orange, or a combination thereof. So like there's a lot of all the tackle that you would normally use ice fishing will work up at Lake of the Woods. There's this little tackle company up there called Tom's Tackle, and they make specific Lake of the Woods colors on their lures because that's what they gear towards. And of course, they're the ones that will have like a gold, pink, and a glow white in the same lure, that sort of thing. Or that glow red that's a dang good color. You come in now with a little bit of gold, it lights out, So anyway, but those are the colors. And then of course, in that stained water too, I like using rattles once in a while. So if I use a jigging spoon, I'll try that rattle on it. But here's the deal: if the three of us were fishing in a fish house, I would say, "Hey, all right, you guys, you're going to start out with jigging spoons. I'll start out with a rip and wrap. Let me try a rip and wrap, see if they're reacting to that. Plus, that rip and wrap might pull more fish under our fish house because of the noise and right. Such. And even if they don't hit it, I'll still pull some more fish in. And then, hey, as far as dead sticks go, I'm going to start with a plain hook. You guys okay, Kurt, you're starting with gold, great. And then Chase, you're going to use glow red. All right, let's see what they're biting on. I'll tell you what, I'm going to put my dead stick 6 inches off. Chase, if you don't, maybe you raise yours up a little bit, see if they prefer it up. And because, fish are used to feeding up, and a lot of times you got to chase up. So sometimes, where I learned that, you guys, that like 2 feet off the bottom. I tell you how I learned that. If I'd be doing something in the fish house and I didn't want my line to go down the hole, if I was going to grab something or go and take a whiz or whatever the case might be, I'd pull my jigging line way up. So it'd be like half, maybe 4 or 5 feet off the bottom, so it wouldn't go down. And I'd come back in, and I'd notice there'd be a lot of fish on the bottom, and it might even be a tough bite day. And all of a sudden, that darn fish starts rising up, nice and slow, rising up to my jigging spoon that's 4 feet off the bottom. And all of a sudden, I see my rod tip. I'm not even jigging. I was watching. My rod tip goes, boom, boom, fish. What the heck? I've been working this jigging line, not getting a thing. I got a dead stick 6 inches off with a live minnow, and it wanted to sitting still 4 feet off. But I think that's an instinct that they're used to feeding up. They're used to chasing, you know.
Yeah.
So you try different things. You work together. You figure out what's working. And every day can be different because of pressure systems, because they ate yesterday, because of where you're fishing and what they're feeding on and what their forage is. I'll never forget, I was with my cousin, and it was a tough bite, man, in February. We could see fish down there, but we couldn't. It was really hard catching them, middle of the day, you know. My cousin had some freeze-dried waxworms that he got on clearance at some sporting goods store. He had it in his tackle bait. He's like, well, shit, we're not catching anything anyway. So he put on a freeze-dried waxworm, and 2 of them, onto a real little Swedish pimple, real little. You know, a lot of times in a tough bite, you downsize, right? He put that on and got it down in that mud and dropped in that mud and kind of lifted off a little bit. And boy, he started popping some really nice saugers. Again, I think those saugers were probably feeding on, you know, bloodworms and different larval and such, you know, hatches coming out of that mud. And that just kind of mimicked that. And again, you work together, you experiment, and you get them dialed in, the bottom line.
Is there?
Well, the nice thing about going up north there is that it is a daytime bite, so you can get off the lake by dark, and you've got time for supper, kick back, relax, enjoy a few drinks, get some good sleep, and then go out and hit it hard the next day. That's what I like.
We say some good sleep, by the way, Jason, but I do know a few people, and this was never me in my younger days, I'll tell you that. But I do know some people that come off that ice, and that's when the real activity begins. I mean, you know, you're telling fish stories, you're having a few cocktails or whatever your favorite drink is, and I do know that some of the bigger resorts up there during the heart of the ice fishing season have live music going on. So I'm not saying it would be you or me or anything, but there are times where I know people have gone to bed kind of late. You know, we have a joke in the tourism industry. It's called first night in camp. You know, you get up there, you're all fresh, you're all excited. You know, you get to the bar, you have dinner that first night when you get up there, you know, and you have a bunch of cocktails and you stay up a little bit late because you're all excited. That next day you're a little bit tired, and you do it again on night 2, and third day you're a little more tired, and you know.
Well, I know when last time I was up there, we started with this little bottle of Fireball. And it disappeared in a quick hurry. And
well, that'll get people telling fish stories, huh?
Oh, man, I tell you, it was awesome.
Any regulations other than 2 lines that people got to know about Lake of the Woods if they're thinking about taking a trip? You know, any different regulations up in that area that, you know, people might not know about?
Kurt, that's a really good question. I'm glad you brought it up. You know, first off, fish limits. So there's a combined limit on Lake of the Woods, Minnesota. There's a combined a walleye and sauger limit, an aggregated limit, combined limit of 6 fish. Up to 4 of the 6 can be walleyes. There's also a slot limit. You know, any walleye 19.5 inches to 28 inches must be released immediately. You keep your eaters under 19.5 inches. You can keep 1 walleye over 28 per day. Now, that's actually the best part of it. You know, the reason that length is 19.5, by the way, is that's when a walleye becomes a mature breeder on Lake of the Woods. So they said, let's make sure that our walleye population is sustainable. Let's make sure that we keep the 19.5 to 28s. We'll keep those in the system. We'll keep those fish under 19.5. And I'll tell you what, those fish under 19.5, they're the best eaters anyway. I'll tell you what, notice this. Whenever you make a plate of walleye, if you got some thicker fillets in that plate, and then you got those real thin fillets that fry up, which fillets go first?
Thin ones every time.
Every time, the thin, small pieces, right? So, you know, it's the small ones, and you can still keep a trophy if you catch one. A lot of people nowadays will take a few good pictures at a few good angles of the big fish, release their back, and what they do is they go get a graphite mount. But that's personal preference. If you want to keep a real one for the wall and mount a real walleye, we have no problem with that. Nobody does. That's the law, you know, and that's okay. There's enough to sustain the population. As far as lines go, we mentioned you can use 2 lines. As far as I'm trying to think what else. Other than that, you know, just there's certain limits when you're tip up fishing that you got to have tip ups within a certain distance. I know the quick strike rigs have to be a certain length. They can't be too long or too short. And that's all in the Minnesota regulations book.
Is it they have to have a spinner on them too? I believe I've always heard that in Minnesota.
They do. Yeah, quick strike rig has to have a spinner on them, and you know you can buy those quick strike rigs all over in Minnesota that are legal. And you know, I'll tell you one thing: we talked about walleyes and saugers, and that's really what catches the most of the attention. But you know, I had a resort owner from the Northwest Angle ask me recently, "What are we going to do about our pike problem?" I'm like, pike problem?
You run tournaments like we do, the Pike Masters.
Look at that. Cool. See, then this is just going to resonate with you. I said, what kind of pike problem? He said, well, we got too many 40+ inch pike in the system. We have way too many. They're everywhere, and they're eating all those walleyes. And but I'll tell you something. We have the DNR manages them, and they do test netting each year for pike. We have such a high population of 40+ inch pike. In fact, the limit of pike on Lake of the Woods is 3 fish. Any fish between 30 to 40 inches, you must release immediately, pike. That creates that trophy fishery.
Sure.
You can keep 1 pike over 40 inches per day if you want to. Again, there's so many big pikes. So what happens is you catch big pike when you're walleye fishing accidentally. Otherwise, you can spearfish them in the early ice, or you can spearfish them all winter, but most people do it in the back bays, early ice. And then they tip-up fish them. And I tell you, tip-up fishing pike, the people fish them all winter long. The most popular month to ice fish pike on Lake of the Woods is March. Pike season's open year-round on Lake of the Woods. So on a year that we have a whole bunch of ice, that might even be early April that people are out ice fishing pike. But basically, here's what happens is, pike, they don't school. But when they're getting towards that spawn, they get congregated out in front of spawning areas, pre-spawn areas, they call them. And when you get in those areas with those tip-ups, those pike are putting the feed bag on, it can be freaking lights out. And, to catch a 40, 45 inch pike is fairly realistic. I mean, there's a lot of big pike out there.
That's fantastic. Joe, it's been great to have you.
Thank you
very much. It's been an action-packed hour here, just a little less than an hour, but we sure learned a lot about Lake of the Woods. And obviously, it's a destination anytime, all the time, but certainly right now for the fact that we down here, in South Dakota and Minnesota, even some areas in North Dakota just don't have the ice, but Lake of the Woods does. So that's good to know.
So we'll take it, right? I mean, we want everywhere to have ice, but Mother Nature is what she is right now, and we got to go where there's safe ice.
If people want to know, plan a trip, where should they start looking?
We have a website that we have information about ice fishing. We have all of our resorts and our outfitters and what amenities they offer, whether they offer day houses, sleeper fish houses. We have it all. And that website is Lake of the Woods, MN for Minnesota, Lake of the Woods, MN.com. You go there, and that's pretty much full service. It's going to give you information about winter, summer, fall, seasons. I got videos on there about some different ideas about jigging walleyes. We have a ton of information on there, Kurt, and that'd be a good place. That's kind of the repository for Lake of the Woods information.
Perfect. And all your members will be on there, so you guys can find a place to, book your stay. I'm sure you reach out to Joe; he'll help you plan a trip. And
happy to. Anything I can do. If anybody reaches out to me, Kurt, I'll just say this: I'm really happy to help you out. And what I try to do is based on the kind of group you have and when you want to come and what you're trying to accomplish. Like, hey, we have our own equipment, or we want to use all resort equipment, whatever. We want a place with a bar and restaurant. We don't really care. We want to go to the Angle. We want to stay in the South Shore. What I try to do is based on what I hear, I try to give options of 3 to 5 places that they could stay. That way I'm not playing favorites, Yep. But at the same time, it can be overwhelming because there's so many places up at Lake of the Woods, and where do we start? So I'm very happy to help out, Kurt, for your mention.
Well,
fantastic.
Perfect. We look forward to coming to see you. We'll have to get up there. We're going to do a live event coming up the first weekend of January on Devil's Lake, and we might have to make a trip over to Lake of the Woods and join Joe for a live event.
That would be great. And I'll tell you what, you head to Devils, you got to say hi to Susie and all my friends over at Devil's Lake. That's also a great fishery. And, we're competitors in some ways, but in many more ways, we're good friends. We're both great walleye destinations, and we have a lot in common. So, I'll certainly hang out with Susie and her crew at the different sports shows, and they're a great crew. So
a few years ago, you guys did Walleye Wars. I'm foggy. Who won Walleye Wars?
Well, I don't want to. We won it, but that's one given day of fishing. And I'll say we won Walleye Wars that year, but that was one given day, and we were on a really good bite. And we also have that stained water, so we can be picking them all day. And Devil's Lake, at least for the they get them all day too, but they're a little bit clear water, so that morning evening bite's a little bit more important to them. But no, they got a great fishery. We even said, hey, we won it this year, but that was one given day. And the reason we did the promotion is because we were highlighting basically both walleye fisheries, and it was good. Boy, I'll tell you a good one. We're doing that Walleye Wars, and of course, what we would do is we would go live, Facebook Live every hour on the hour, and Devil's Lake would go live every hour and a half hour, and we're competing throughout the day. And I had a rip and wrap on, and man, I had a big line come in there, and I jigged that thing, and it hit it, and I set that hook, and my rod just torqued. It got off just like that.
Oh.
And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? That is a fish I would have liked to have seen, whether it was a huge pike or a huge walleye. I'm guessing it was one of the two, but it would have been fun to get that one in on Walleye Wars. I didn't get that one in, but again, you remember that, Kurt? That was a fun promotion.
That was a cool idea. So, well, Joe, it was awesome to have you. Thank you for joining us tonight, and we look forward to seeing you in the future.
Merry Christmas, happy holidays, safe ice fishing, everybody.
Thanks, Joe. Merry Christmas to you. Thank you much. Merry Christmas, all.